Love the CJ battle. Dig on it.
Probably shouldn't be this close to you. Once upon a time I enjoyed the view. You can blame me or I can blame you. Love is just something that we never do. Birds and the bees, yeah, they fly so high. No, I don't wanna leave, I don't wanna stay by. Promise I won't leave, no, I'll never tell a lie. Yeah, I never tell a lie, no, not to your eye. Birds and the bees, yeah, they fly so high. No, I don't wanna leave, I don't wanna stay by. Promise I won't leave, no, I'll never tell a lie. No, I'll never tell a lie, no, not to your eye.
Got me on my knees, praying to the Most High. Tell me what I need just to keep you in my life. Then I hit the bleed and I pass it to my right. You looking right at me cause you wanna ask me why. Ask me why. Ask me why. Ask me why.
Drop exclusive. CJ battle.
Been a long time since I spoke to you. Funny how nothing that you said was true. You can blame me or I can blame you. But love is just something that we never knew. Probably shouldn't be this close to you. Once upon a time I enjoyed the view. You can blame me or I can blame you. But love is just something that we never knew. Nothing that you said, not a thing you said, got through my head. Nothing that you said, not a thing you said, got through my head.
Yeah, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You are
So what are you waiting for?
3, 2, 1.
I don't know, something amazing.
The earth is flat.
Oh, yo, love the CJ battle. The earth is flat, connected. We are in a connected universe. What's good, man? Yo, love the CJ battle. I've been waiting, man, to drop, man. Drop this SoundCloud off to y'all, man. This is, you know, when we call them drop artists, man, we just talking about the artists out there that got the drop. And when you know what I'm saying, you use a witness to the drop that this brother's bringing. Love to the whole battle family. Ty Battle with the wonderful poetry. Chris Battle. I mean, just pure water from the get-go and just so much energy, man, been pouring in. And I know they're there to support. I know they're there, you know what I mean, just to get to the mountaintop. And that feels good, man, to feel the family and the frequency. And this is CJ Battle. Obviously been doing this production thing, man. I've been rocking for a minute. So I'll drop the link to this SoundCloud. And y'all can get at CJ Battle, man. Tell him that you appreciate him, man. Tell him, man, he got the drop, man. CJ Battle was good, man. We appreciate you, brother. You do got the drop, my brother. Yeah, we feeling good, man. Again, the library's back up and in full effect. You can click on the link and get over 100 PDFs ready for your viewing and downloading pleasure. And we're getting right to it, man. We're talking about the connected universe. And we're just getting cozy, man. So pull up that Worlds Beyond a Pole. All right. Let's get cozy, man. Let's get cozy. Love to the tribe. Love to all the family. Hawaii, Hawaii. Yo, this is what we do. We get cozy right about this time. Now maybe bring out the fireplace. Life is hard sometimes. You need somewhere to get cozy at. We just want you to think of us as just a, good, nice little cozy cloud. A nice little cozy wave to surf on. A nice little cozy pillow. Nice little cozy fuzzy slippers to, slip your feet in, man, and feel all right. Put some anointed oil on them feet, man. You know what I mean? And just feel good and feel powerful. This is what we're here for. This is what our library is still up for. This is what we're rebuilding and everything for. And this is why we won't stop. This is why we won't stop. Because we already have the victory. No matter what they say, we have the victory. No matter what the results have been, we have the victory. We are being redeemed. Because we were crushed. And it is only natural to be built back up one day. It's only natural to return. We're not asking nothing crazy, man. So let's go. We're just asking for orientation. We want it all to be in our vibration. We want it all to be, you know, has to feel good right now. It's not about just how much you read, how many books you read. It just has to feel good. I mean, does it feel good to you? We ain't over here saying this is this and this is that. We're over here putting it together like what feels good. How can we surf the wave? How can we ask questions and be scientific and get repeatable and observable science? When has it not been cool to be a scientist and not just take what's been given to you as a fact without evidence? Pull up Worlds Beyond the Poles. Let's get the evidence of Giannini. And I've been wanting to get in this one right here, man. The Iron Republic by Richard Jameson Morgan. It's a similar, vibe as far as the Stratosphere connected universe. All right, so it's just a different perspective of it. So I want to start with that one, and pull it up and let's see how we can do. Let's see how we do. The Iron Republic. All right, gotta get this real big. Hawa, existence. Every time you hear Hawa, just feel the existence. Feel the pure water. This is pure water you can swim in. This is not insulting. How is it insulting to be scientific? How is it insulting to search? Who wants to get in the way of searching, of connecting, of building, of saying, hey, if we can connect this and connect that, man, we can go places, man. Sheesh. Who got to deal with that? What static is in the way of that order? So feel good, family, man. Feel good beyond anything you thought you was trying to get over here. Drop's telling you to feel good, man, because you're making me feel good by giving me a little bit of this time. So I know I ain't going crazy. So I love you. I love you, man. The energy is love. So, go ahead and dig on it. Don't be shy. There you go. Richard Jameson Morgan. All right. So we're talking Richard Jameson Morgan. Synopsis of former chapters. Let's get that. So Mr. J.E. Barrington, a brilliant and wealthy young lawyer and politician of one of the great middle western states, is duped and sold out by the professional politicians in his campaign for Congress, and looks like it says Bagreen. I can't see what that says, but let's go. And embittered against his country. So he's embittered against his country and the entire human race. He converts all of his property into gold, and going to New York purchases a vessel with which he sails down into the Antarctic region with the intention of devoting his life and means to polar expeditions, of finding some isolated country beyond the pale of civilization and out of the track of sea travel, where he will be lost to the world. All right. So let's put this all together, man. Let's go. So he's just saying, man, I'm going for it. All right. So let's get it. To my surprise, I found the ascent less difficult than I expected. Picking out the easiest ways and keeping as much as possible out of the water, we reached a secondary cone or summit about 2/3 of the way up as darkness, or rather the twilight of the Antarctic night, closed in upon us. The surface was quite dry and warm, and I never spent a more comfortable night in these frozen regions than on this lofty peak of Mount Erebus, getting under a ledge of rocks that sheltered us from the wind which cut like a knife. We slept soundly without fear of mice or bedbugs. That night we witnessed the grandest display of the aurora australis, that colorful aurora over the Arctic that you see pictures of all the time, that perhaps any human eyes ever looked upon before. We were 8,000 or 9,000 feet above the sea, and the luminous bands of purple and orange colored light seemed to spring up from all around us, and as they spread towards the zenith and then dipped, umbrella shaped to the horizon, the white desolation of this frozen world was suffused with supernatural glory as we looked out and away on the endless panorama of crags and cliffs and peaks of what seemed to be mountain ranges below us, all deathly white. In this unearthly light, it looked like the ghost of a dead world. The scene was overpowering, and after a hasty survey, we were glad to clamber down into our little gorge out of the uncanny light and smoke our pipes and hear each other's voices to bring us back, as it were, to ourselves. Wow. So the volcano is on the coast of Victoria Island, and in all probability, we were the first human beings who ever set foot on it. It is between 70 to 80 degrees south latitude and looking east or west looking east to west, haze, don't know what that connects, as something as the eye could see. Oh, as far as the eye could see, all right. So it is between 70 and 80 degrees south latitude and looking east or west as far as the eye could see, with the exception of the stairway-like slope up which we had climbed, stretched an unbroken wall of ice looking southward through, and the aid of a glass I could plainly see an open sea very much like that on the north and clear of ice. Alright, so I'm trying to read this. A lot of it is the print is faded on this whole side, so I'm going with it, man. I'm surfing away, but I think we get it, that he's looking southward through, and with the aid of a glass I can plainly see an open sea very much like that on the north and clearer of ice. So it's even clearer of ice. So he sees a whole sea. All this is beyond the Antarctic. I studied the situation carefully. Here was the impenetrable ice barrier, or impenetrable ice barrier that had baffled every explorer of these southern seas. All below this latitude was supposed to be a continent of ice and snow. Men had sailed down here and been dashed against this wall, or had gone back dismayed, dashed against the wall, trying to climb the wall. Alright, Game of Thrones, man. But here on the south was the open sea, which, if it could be reached, offered to the curious navigator opportunity to go heaven only knew where. So, alright, I mean, just imagine yourself in that situation where it's like literally heaven only who knows where I'm going. The more I looked at the great open sea, the more I became convinced that there was a passage somewhere through the icy wall connecting these two bodies of water. We made the descent without incident, and I instructed Captain Brent to hold a safe distance from the ice and circumnavigate the entire Antarctic Circle and find a passage through the ice, fully imbued then with the idea that the Earth was a sphere. I suppose that this body of water on the south was simply an open polar sea surrounded by walls of ice. The next day it came on to blow something there, something down the street, something gale of sleet and snow, and we sought northward for 4 days through such a storm as can only rage or something in the open seas about the South Pole. During these entire 4 days, it was so dark that we would not see the topmost of the leak or sleek. Through every spar and shroud was white with ice. All right, I'm trying, y'all. This stuff is cut off on this side, so you got me just, hey. Okay, it's gonna get clear. It's gonna get clear, man. That was just a bad patch. All right, where were we? Yeah, that's just a bad patch, man. All right, we're getting through it. So during these entire 4 days, it was so dark that we could not see the topmost from the peak or sleek, something like that. Through every spar and shroud was white, though every spar and shroud was white with ice several times. All right, got through it. Several times we were in dangerous proximity to icebergs, but standing to windwards, as it were, we could smell the mighty monsters, though we could not see them and keep away. This smell of an iceberg, as it is called by seamen, is the peculiar crispness of the air blowing over one of these great bodies of ice. It may be felt for miles. So it's just the crispness that they're feeling. The vessel was awash from capstan to wheel, and though we could carry scarcely more canvas than we could give us steerage way, her lee scuppers were most of the time dragging through the hissing brine, and it was absolutely necessary for every man above deck to lash himself to the rigging to keep from being washed overboard. Cooking was out of the question, and for 4 days there was no fire in the cook's galley. Our diet during this time consisted of sea biscuit and tinned food, with an occasional pannikin of rum to keep up the warmth. It was a fearful time, and though we had encountered much heavier weather on the voyage, we had experienced nothing comparable with this. Indeed, Captain Brent said afterwards that in all his 20 years of voyages in these waters, he had never passed through so terrible a gale. Looks like a gale or gate. All right. Only the staunchness of our ship and the skill and experience of our skipper saved us from the destruction. It may not be irrelevant or presumptuous in me also to feel that an overruling providence guided us through this ice-shrown and storm-whipped sea, and the great results of our voyage might be achieved. When the terrific storm subsided and the atmosphere cleared so that we could again see about us, the towering ice bearers were nowhere to be seen. How much northing we had made it was impossible for us to tell, as we had entirely lost our reckoning. So at this point, he don't know where he is. If he's north, south, he has no reckoning of where he is beyond this wall. Now, remember these maps, man. Again, love to Isaac Ford, man. So if this map here is a reference. This is a Japanese map found in a cave, they say nearly 10 centuries ago, showing more land behind this ice wall. This is the wall that's surrounding you. In any direction, you're going to hit that wall. And when they make their Antarctic Treaty, they're making it with all 53 plus countries to guard this outer perimeter to keep you in the Middle Earth. So whatever lands they're discovering on their expeditions, like Admiral Byrd said, a land the size of South America, right here. The size of North America, right here, beyond the wall. Now he found one piece of a new world, just like they found you in new worlds and new worlds. Here's another map showing these openings, he said, in the wall. So once you get out of the opening, this one is called the Bawa Wabat Ra Summer Gate, according to this Thoth frequency. This is what they're calling it, set in Anubis, and a soul here, and a bowl here, a bowl, a Baal. Alright, so you got multiple suns, you got gates. So he's saying he's getting out of it. Now this gate right here, or this, land south of South America, right here is Thoth, the moving island. And Thoth is playing major in this hijack. Thoth is playing major. Look at here, you look like a North America, South America right here. So here's a perspective of, what gates as he's in these areas. He think he on the ball, he said, but clearly he's already contemplating differently. And then he is exiting these gates and going into these other lands. And this is what we're getting into, back to the Giannini. Let's get a little bit more of this Iron Republic before we keep going, man. And again, love to my man Chris Battle for the intro. Birds and the bees. Dig on it. All right. So how much northing we had made was impossible for us to tell, as we had entirely lost our reckoning, heading southward again until we raised the ice wall along which we had been coasting before the Gay or Galley. We shaped our course parallel to it and held on with the view of finding a passage through it, if there was such a thing, 14 days after this, during which time we encountered all sorts of weather, for there are never many days together in these seas without a wild snort of wind and snow from some direction. Captain Brent called me up from my cabin and handed me his glass, directed my attention to an opening in the wall of ice before us. 2 crystal promontories jutted out into the water on either hand, and between a narrow but well-defined and open strait. Whoa! Promontories. Hold up. You know how we doing, man. I want to know what a promontory is. What is a promontory, man? What? Let's go to images, man. I'll be trying to play. This natural arc is visible from several promontories. Alright, let's get it. So it just seems like clefts of rock. A point of high land that juts out into a large body of water. So it's a point of high land sticking out the water. All right. Okay. So crystal points. Crystal point. Y'all get it. All right, let's go. Shit. It's hard, man. I mean, we got to put this together. We got to visualize here. All right. So he's saying he found an opening, remember, to get out of this ice wall. And this map has several openings. One major one called the Ra Summergate and Thoth the Moving Islands outside. Uh-oh. So there must be these crystal promontories basically right around this area, or maybe here. However, you know, maybe he hit this one. Maybe he hit that one. All right. Maybe he hit that one. And he found these two clefts, these two promontories. Let's look at the images again. Something like this. Something like these things sticking out. Alright, so we're trying to get it. Let's go. Let me alkaline up. No, I'm slipping, man. I got regular spring water, man, but I'll get back on my alkaline tomorrow, man. I'll power up tomorrow. So here we go. So 14 days after this, during which we encountered all sorts of weather. All right, 2 crystal promontories jutting out into the water on either hand and between a narrow but well-defined and open strait. We could not see through, as it was sinuous, but after observing it for some time, we could perceive by the loose ice that was floating around the mouth that a current set into it. I instantly gave directions to have the vessel headed into this strait. In vain, Captain Brent remonstrated and declared that we must be lost if we encountered a pack of ice, an ice pack, or we're overtaken by a storm in this narrow place. The wind is fair, said he, but if we encountered an ice pack blocking the passage, as we most likely shall, we can never navigate the ship out again without more sea room. So he's like, I don't want to get stuck up in this between these promontories, man. So it was the first serious disagreement we ever had since we started on the voyage, and I could not but feel that as navigator with the responsibility for the safety of the vessel and the lives of the crew, he was right. I begged him, though, to lay in as close as he could to the mouth of the strait, that we might examine it more closely, and on this we compromised and put the vessel's head in towards the opening, intending to heave to and claw off the shore, as the wind was light and the sea comparatively calm. And here it did seem that Providence was furthering my apparently wild purpose, for when he had dropped the ship into within a few 100 feet of the opening and ordered the helm down to bring her about, the wind suddenly fell so that there was no steerage way enough to bring the vessel's head around, and we drifted helplessly at the mercy of the waves. Instantly, all was commotion, for a ship on shore without wind is as perilous condition as a steamer with a broken wheel. The bow anchor was quickly cleared, and the lead cast, but there was no bottom, and so to cast anchor would be useless. The current now caught us, and there was nothing for it but to head straight into the opening or be broken to pieces on the icy promontories that stood out like Scylla and Charybdis on either hand. You know, I'm sure those are some type of monuments, you know, idol statues or something like that. But my heart bounded as we passed between the towering ice walls, and I felt a thrill of excitement such as Columbus must have experienced when he long looked for Antilles lifted on his expectant vision. All right, man. So, you know what I mean? This is kind of exciting because as we get this Giannini connected universe and we start digging on you know, a substantiating source, you know, breaking through the ice wall. This is, you know, published around that same era. You know what I'm saying? I'll go back and get the date on it, but, you know, it seems to be around that same area as this Giannini situation, if not a little later. Let's get a little more. So the apprehensions of Captain Brent proved groundless. The passage was open, and though there was considerable floating ice, the current was driving it in the same direction, and we experienced no difficulty in sailing through. Indeed, it was impossible for us to do anything but go through, for after we had gotten fairly into the strait, the current was like a mighty swift flowing river, and had there been a fair wind to go back, it must have blown half a gale to drive us against such a tide as was sweeping through. I was convinced that this was a permanent strait and not merely an accidental break in the great barriers. The regular smoothness of the sides showed the flows, and I am certain that there is a backbone of terra firma underneath these barriers of ice. So he knows that there's land under that ice through which this passage cuts, and it is a permanent and clearly defined as the Straits of Magellan or Gibraltar. I have a theory, but it must be elucidated in dry deductions of scientific reasoning. I will not inject it into this narrative. It is my intention, though, as soon as possible, to prepare a more elaborate work, which I am constrained to believe will be the effects of continuous current and the abrasions of a great masses of ice carried through by it. This says Captain Brent's ship Wanderer, as she appears on her return at Tampa. Alright, so that's the ship as she appears. Okay. I say I was convinced then, but when on our return we found the passage in every respect practically in the same condition as we passed through the first, there was positively no room for doubt. I would not contend that this strait is always open, but I do maintain that it is a permanent channel through which a strong current flows, and I am certain that there is a backbone of terra firma underneath these barriers of ice. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back a little bit, because this whole thing is a little tricky. Let me go back right here. All right. I was convinced that this was a permanent strait and not merely an accidental break in the great barriers. The regular smoothness of the sides showed the effects of continuous current and the abrasions of a great masses of ice carried through by it. I say I was convinced then, but when our return, but when on our return we found the passage in every respect practically in the same condition as we passed through first, there was positively no room for doubt. I will not contend that this strait is always open, but I do maintain that it was a permanent channel through which a strong current flows. And I am certain that there is a backbone of terra firma underneath these barriers of ice through which the passage cuts, and is a permanent and clear defined as the Straits of Magellan or Gibraltar. Alright, so he talks about having his theory. I am constrained to believe will be a valuable addition to scientific literature. It is probable that this passage is sometimes closed by ice packs, or the entrance may be jammed with great masses of drift ice, while beyond the channel may still be open, with the current always flowing through from the north. It is easy to imagine that a great iceberg happening to be nearby would drown us if it were large enough to fill up the passage. As many of them are, it will be firmly held there until crushed and broken up by the waves, hiding the strait and giving the appearance of a solid ice wall. Then too, mariners in these wild sea wastes are very cautious, seldom approaching near enough to be the barriers to detect this passage, even if it were open. What the depths of it is, we had no means of ascertaining, for though we spliced together all the lead lines or lead lines aboard the ship, we never succeeded in finding bottom anywhere. They couldn't find a bottom to this thing, on account of the tremendous current that set through with the ship. The log was valueless, but from close observation, both going and coming, Captain Brent estimates the length of the passage to be about 25 miles. On the farther side of the ice walls and sea presented practically the same features as on this, the shining cliffs running away as far as the eye can see on either side, on either hand, while the black ocean heaved with great billows that broke with continuous thunder against the barriers or threw their spray high on the great solemn icebergs that floated in silent majesty, too immense to be shaken by Neptune in the wildest efforts of his wrath. Can you imagine seeing this, man? It's a one-way current. The sun, which has been rising but a little way above the horizon for some time past, disappeared entirely soon after we got into the open sea beyond the barriers. So they finally got into the open sea beyond the barrier. They finally got into the open sea beyond the barrier. Can you get the picture? Hang in there with me, man. You know, I've been doing a lot of talking, man. So I saved my voice for these last few pages. And Drop's going to get some rest. All right, let's go. So he's saying, this dude just said, that the sun, remember there's two suns in this depiction, all right? Remember there's two suns. So he's saying the sun disappeared. And let's see what else happens. I don't know. But he's cutting through either this, it seems like something like this, which was 25 miles is what he's saying. Because I know he wasn't on this side. I believe he was on this side. But let's go. Well, yeah, he's on Florida, so I'm feeling like he's hitting this one right here, man. If I was a betting man. So he said the sun, which had been rising, but a little way above the horizon, for some time past, disappeared entirely soon after we got into the open sea beyond the barrier. But when the air was not filled with sleet or snow, it was never really dark. The aurora Australis, too, frequently lighted the sea with its weird, strange glow, so that it was easy for us to keep the frozen coastline in view. My object was now to circumnavigate this polar sea, sailing eastward along the south side of the barrier until we again came in view of Mount Erebus. Far off to the northwest, we then headed the ship due south and soon sunk the ice-bound coast and mountain beneath the black horizon of the Antarctic Sea. My idea then was that we were in the open polar ice locked all around, and we thought to sail directly across until we reached the barriers on the opposite side, and thus obtain a knowledge of its extent. Shortly after we crossed the ice barriers, the needle became erratic, deflecting more and more every day until it entirely reversed itself. So he had a reverse magnetism. So I guess north became south. The weather was fair, and we detected that this by the constellations or we would undoubtedly have sailed out of our course and turned the ship around and following the compass. For weeks after we passed through the Bering Strait, as I have been egotistically enough to Christian it, something we had storms, snow, ice, and the Black Ocean through which we plowed was in no wise different from that which extends from Cape Horn to Victoria Island, except that we noticed less ice and met with no storms as severe as we encountered on this side, both going and coming. I would not weary the reader with the details of our long voyage in this hitherto unknown ocean. They're in an unknown ocean outside of this ice wall that's protected by 53 countries in the Antarctic Treaty. Now they're in another ocean, right? So before, these people were stuck in the Mediterranean Sea and couldn't get out to this true ocean. They say, oh, that's the true ocean. And once you're in this true ocean, you have access to these portals, to these breaks in the ice, to these raw summer gates, and more worlds. They just found you, so-called Negro, in their new world. Now they're venturing to find more. And more, and more, and more, and more, and how many more? Copper color race found here by the European. Let's go. Unknown ocean. In the course of time, the sun again appeared, and as we drew southward, the sea became cleared of ice and the cold moderated, as it does in traveling from the poles to the equator. In vain we looked for the ice barrier which we supposed surrounded us. Only the black open sea stretched on, and we held our course. There were no exciting incidents, and 4 months after passing the barriers, we were sailing in open seas out of the region of ice and snow, with the weather constantly growing warmer. Whoa! Well, if the weather's growing warmer and he's just sailing out into open sea for 4 months, he might be hitting another soul, another sun. It might be growing warmer, getting towards another sun. All right, we're just surfing the wave. Constantly growing warmer. 2 months later, we encountered driftwood, and not long afterwards, sea fowls appeared and grew more numerous every day. They appeared on the starboard side as their number increased from day to day, including some that were unmistakably land birds. I expressed the opinion to Captain Brent that we were sailing parallel to some coast, and suggested that the ship's course be altered to make this shore. This was done, and evidences of land such as seaweed and driftwood became more apparent every day. My interest and excitement became so great that I could not be still a moment when awake, and could sleep but little. In a fever of restlessness, I walked the deck hour after hour and scanned the horizon for land. A perfectly useless waste of energy, as a man was stationed in the lookout, who of course would see the land long before it became visible from the deck. The weather was fine, and we were evidently nearing land of some kind. As night closed on the 20th of July, an illumination of some kind was plainly visible on the horizon off the starboard bow. So this is equivalent to an astronaut being in a rocket looking for another Earth. Except the astronauts don't have to go up, they can only go straight through land and water and ice, finding more worlds, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and whatever other Planets, planes, planets, planes. Remember, planet is plane, to make devious. Get the drop, pull it up. All right, so we started seeing some, some goods visible off the horizon, off the starboard bow, and the vessel's head was turned towards it. My excitement was so great that I did not go down to the cabin for supper. The illumination grew plainer constantly, and at 10 o'clock, the lookout at the masthead said he could distinguish what seemed to be electric lights. At this, my hopes fell. I had been thrilled with the idea of approaching an unknown land in an unknown ocean. And now it seemed that in some way we had gotten back into the beaten track of the world and was approaching a modern city. Whoa. Captain Brent was of the opinion that it was one of the cities on the west coast of South America. I mean, how you get this lost? Although it was impossible to understand how we could have gotten there, as we have been sailing south by the heavens ever since we left the polar regions. In a short time, it was plainly to be seen from the deck that we were approaching a considerable city lighted by electricity. As we neared the land, the lead was heaved constantly, and after running in as close as he dared, the captain cast an anchor and waited for daylight before attempting to enter the harbor. As soon as the ship was made snug and everything became quiet on board, I was struck by the strange silence of the city that lay before us. Although evidently a large city and a modern one, if we might judge from the brilliant manner in which it was lighted, there was an entire absence of that roar and rumble which characterizes the modern American or European city. So imagine how freaky that is, man. You pulling up, you've been in open sea. You say, oh shit, it's land, and it's a modern city, but it's a quiet ass city. Let's go. We're just surfing the wave. We're just surfing, get your surfboard, let's go. As a matter of fact, although we lay within a few miles, no sound of any kind came to us, and the silence was strange and weird-like, as though it was some brilliantly illuminated city of the dead. Whoa! 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 I mean, would it be something like Thoth, the moving island? Huh? City of the dead? I mean, I don't know. We're talking the fallen angel cities? Are we talking fallen angel cities? Thoth, the moving island. He's talking about being outside into this unknown ocean. This is the known ocean. This is the unknown ocean. He's out in the unknown ocean. Let's go. That's creepy, man. That's some creepy stuff, man. I was awake next morning by the cracking or creaking of the winch, of the rattling of the cable as the anchor was hoisted. And dressing hurriedly, I went on deck where the captain and crew were discussing the small craft that was coming out of the harbor. Even as we looked, a more remarkable boat came tearing out and pinching towards us at the rate of at least 50 miles an hour. As it came towards us, we could see this thing's coming 50 miles an hour back then. All right. As it came towards us, we could see only a great billow of foam, and above it, a covered deck, something like a ferry boat or excursion barge, When he came alongside of us, we could see that the vessel, if such a thing may be called a vessel. Oh man, get my battery right. All right. So such a thing may be called a vessel. Consisted of a long cigar-shaped hole, submerged after the fashion of an American whaleback, with the superstructure raised on stanchions, right? On each end of this cylindrical hole were great cone-shaped screws somewhat larger than the hole itself, and it was these that raised the billows of foam as they leaped through the water, pushing and dragging the strange-looking boat. I mean, see, man. All right, man. A uniformed pilot was put aboard and a towering hawser thrown to the men in the boat, saluting and speaking perfect English. Wait. A uniformed pilot was put aboard and a towering hawser thrown to the men in the boat in the bow, saluting and speaking perfect English, though with a peculiar accent. Okay. The pilot asked what vessel it was. On being informed that it was the Wanderer of New York, United States of America, he dropped his jaws, stretched his eyes, and looked altogether as upset as if he had been told that it was a Flying Dutchman. What land is this? Asked Captain Brent in return. The Iron Republic, sir, replied the pilot. The Iron Republic. Again saluting and advancing to the wheel in response to our further questioning, he courteously stated that he was an officer on duty, that it was against the rules for him to hold any conversation except in reference to the ship, and begged us to curb our curiosity until we got ashore, when all the information we desired would be afforded us. So obviously they're asking him a bunch of questions, man, jamming him up about this Iron Republic. Okay. There was nothing else for us to do, so Captain Brent turned his attention to lowering and furling the sails which had been hoisted. And by the time everything was made snug, we were alongside the pier. As soon as we were made fast, another officer came on board, and he, like the pilot, seemed to be dumbfounded when he learned that the vessel hailed from the United States of America. After inspecting the ship's papers, he turned to Captain Brent and informed him that the circumstances of our arrival were so unusual and unprecedented in his experience that he would be under the necessity of conducting him to the officer of the Director of Navigation. Thereupon the captain introduced me as owner and the proper person to deal with, and the officer politely requested me to accompany him. Sir, said I, as we passed through the curious throng that had gathered on the wharf, will you be kind enough to tell me what country this is and in what part of the world it lies? This, he replies, is the Iron Republic, and the continent on which you stand lies about as far from the frozen ocean as your continent of America does in the opposite direction. Whoa. So, do you think this is play? As we tie in this Admiral Byrd and this Giannini and this August Picard that we about to get some now. So this, he replied, is the Iron Republic, and the continent on which you stand lies about as far from the frozen ice as your own continent of America. does in the opposite direction. So you were like extremely far, man. Just here, having reached the outskirts of the crowd, he made a signal and a man approached with a horseless vehicle, something like that, horseless vehicle, and dismounting, saluted and opened the door of his carriage, forbearing to question further an officer of whose power and authority I had not the slightest idea, and whose extreme courtesy forbade impertinence. I took my place in the carriage and was whirled along wide, smooth streets through the heart of the city. I have remarked that though we lay just outside of the harbor and in sight of the city for some hours before entering, we had heard none of that roar and rumble inseparable from cities of its apparent size among us. The reason was now plain. In the first place, the streets were all as smooth as tennis courts, and there was nothing to make a noise. There was not a horse to be seen, and it was evident from the floor-like cleanness of the streets that these were not intended for the use of horse or wagons. On all sides were horseless vehicles. All right, so he must be talking at the time of horse and buggy. He's seeing horseless vehicles. So he's pretty much talking about cars. So they had cars, from the lightest bicycles to large covered vans, all rubber tired, whirling to and fro swiftly and without noise. I had only time to note the things referred to and to remark the strange and picturesque costumes of the ladies and gentlemen who were on the street when my conductor drew up before a large, substantial stone building covering an entire block. Stepping down from the carriage, he assisted me to alight and ushered me into a large and lighted reception room in the front of the building. I noticed as we approached that a blue flag with a white star floated from the tower on the roof, and surmised in some way the two officers with them I had been brought in contact. And the building which we had entered represented the same department of government, conducting me to one of the comfortable seats with which the room was supplied. My companion excused himself by saying that the gentleman who met me at the boat, all right, just a little bit more, would be with me in a few minutes, and withdrew. Scarcely had he passed through the door when the person referred to came in, having presumably ridden up after us in his own carriage. Smiling pleasantly, he expressed the hope that I would not be annoyed by the little conventionalities to which I was being subjected, saying that my arrival was so extraordinary and so out of common with all other entries made since he had been connected with the Marine, that he had no other recourse but to refer me to the head of the department. I assured him that I was under obligations for his courteous attention, that a stranger, as I was and dazed by the extraordinary circumstances in which I found myself, I was in a condition to absolutely require guidance and direction. He desired me to consider myself under no restraint whatsoever, stating that I was being referred to the chief of the Bureau of Navigation because he was at a loss to know how to place me on the Marine Register. Opening a door, he conducted me without ceremony into the presence of a gentleman who he introduced as the Director of Navigation and Chief of the Department of the Marine. This officer, notwithstanding his evident high position, rose and smiling cordially bowed and asked us both to be seated. In a few words, the subordinate explained to his superior the circumstances of my arrival and asked for the instructions in certain matters pertaining to the registering of my vessel. These were given, and then the high official, with rare feeling and tact, arose and grasped my hand and welcomed me to the Iron Republic, saying that though it might lack the associations which must make my native country pleasant, it possessed advantages and attractions which he believed, from what he had been able to learn, could not be found in America. I wonder what that is. I thanked him for his cordial greeting and assured him that while some associations of my own country had been pleasant, others were very unpleasant, and upon the whole, I was glad to have found my way to the Iron Republic, whatever and wherever it might be. After inquiring into the details of my voyage, in which he manifested great interest, the director remarked that the astonishment of his countrymen at my arrival would naturally be less than mine, inasmuch as they had a very thorough knowledge of my country. It was known, he said, that from the settlement of his country, that the American continent existed. Indeed, that it was the attempt of a shipload of immigrants to get to America that led to a discovery of the continent on which the magnificent structure of government known as the Iron Republic had been reared. This was in 1608, or was that 1698? And driven southward by fierce gales, the colonists. So this is in the 1600s, man. Then you're talking the same damn colonists. After many months of battling with storm and ice, found themselves cast on the inhospitable shores in a new world. So they stumbled on another new world. For many years afterwards, the first settlement was made. It was supposed by the colonists that they were on a portion of American continent, but the development of the country, the increase of knowledge and researchers and navigators, it was found that they had been discoverers as well as colonizers. They knew all that was known in Europe of the American continent up to the time they were so effectually cut off from the balance of the civilized world, and within the past 50 years, 2 other American ships had drifted to their shores. When I told him how many lives had been lost and how much treasure and how had been squandered by America and other nations in Arctic explorations, and expressed surprise that a people so advanced in the arts of civilization as his nation appeared to be should make no attempts to establish communication with other parts of the world, but should remain isolated for centuries. He smiled pleasantly and said he could appreciate my feelings. In the first place, he explained that the Iron Republic had never been engaged in maritime commerce to any considerable extent, even to the days when trading was encouraged, as there were no other great maritime nations to trade with. As a consequence, there was not that passion for voyaging and exploration which obtains among a maritime people. So they're not a maritime people. Nevertheless, some attempts have been made to get through the barriers, and as vessels had sailed away and never returned, it was supposed at the time that some of them might have succeeded in the attempt. Since the establishment of the Great Republic, though, no efforts have been made in that direction for the reason that there was not sufficient private capital to undertake such enterprise, and from the knowledge they had of the outside world, the government did not desire closer intercourse with the older nations, as it could not possibly do them any good and might result in much harm. So they decided to lay low. Now, if they're colonizers of this place, what happened to the indigenous people of this place? Notice he ain't going to no description of what these people look like, so We're surfing the wave. Maybe he making this up. Maybe he making it up. Let's get a little bit more of this, though, because it is interesting. This, he admitted, was a species of national selfishness. But selfishness. National selfishness, but selfishness, said he. Said he with a smile. Is human and is one thing we have in common with all peoples, past and present. He then told me that a Captain Moorish had reached their country. Captain Moorish reached their country with a ship and crew during the progress of the Great Civil War, and that some years before that, an old American whaler had come to the shores. The whaler remained with them a year and then left with the intention of making his way back to America and was never heard of again. Captain Morris, he informed me, was then in the country, and being a man of great ability, was at the head of the government Naval College. The most of his crew, too, were still living and were established in different parts of the country. I'm going to pause right there, man, for the calls. I mean, yeah. So, I wanted to, anchor in. Let's anchor in somewhere. So, we're right there with this Captain Morris and, getting this information, going back to America. I do want to keep going, but, I just got some more to get, man. So, just stick right there. We're at 159. Just wanted to get that going with the Iron Republic. I mean, you tell me what it is. We're just talking about land beyond the barrier. So we're part of this Iron Republic. We're part of that. What part of that are we talking about? So right quick, man, let's get it, man. Let's get it, man. Let's pause our way out of this library for a second so we can get it. We got on that Picard last time. These connected celestial areas. He said you go straight to go up. You go straight to connect to the stars, not up. There is a barrier. And you do not get to the celestial by going up, which is why rockets never go straight up. So let's get a little bit more of this Professor August Picard. It's about 13 minutes. We'll get a piece of it at least before getting a little, piece back into this world beyond the poles. I want to get to chapter 4. Who knows what we do next, man. But something drew me to this one. So, disclosing the southern land corridor into the heavens above. So, let's take a pause for the cause. Enjoy this Love Tavardo on the plain earth. Let's get it. Fair use and your caboose. Let's go. Cartography. Any map can only be drawn if a person or persons have been in the place several times. Research your own conclusion.
Once again, Professor Picard, the Belgian scientist, has ascended to heights never before reached by man to study the stratosphere, that unknown region which surrounds the Earth at a distance of more than 7 miles. Last year in May, he reached over 9 miles in height, but this time he was out to beat his own record. Accompanied by his assistant, Monsieur Max Cousins, the start was made at dawn from Dubendorf Aerodrome near Zurich. The preparations for the flight began at midnight, but thousands of people had made the journey from Zurich in special trains, whilst a battalion of Swiss troops held down the guy ropes. Professor Picard himself superintended the arrangements for the inflation of the balloon. And then, when all was ready, he clambered inside the gondola which contained a mass of scientific instruments and gave the signal to let go. The balloon rose quickly and eventually climbed to over 10.5 miles above the Earth. Just imagine, whilst we were sweltering in the heat wave, he was nearly frozen to death in 15 degrees centigrade below zero. After being aloft for over 12 hours, he eventually landed near Lake Garda in Italy. From the practical point of view, Professor Picard's experiment is of the highest possible importance.
Here's where the world begins to mock us. The world knows. I can't believe that this commercial was made. The freaks saw this on TV and had me watch it. This is where it gets really interesting. Now, this is new. This is not something I shared last time. But this is a Hennessy. I guess this is Scotch, or is it cognac, or what? I don't know. It's some kind of fancy liquor. Yeah. That's all right. It's fancy liquor. I never got to the real fancy stuff. Right? All right. But this is their commercial. Are we ready to play that commercial? Let's play the commercial, and then we'll talk about it. I want y'all to watch this closely. This is a true event that happened in 1931. The physicist, the Belgian-Swiss physicist, Auguste Piccard. This is a true historic event, but they didn't present it in this commercial completely accurate. But we'll deal with that in a second. But it's amazingly, once you realize what they're showing. Go ahead. So in 1931, the Belgian physicist, who was also a friend of Albert Einstein and worked with Albert Einstein from time to time. I mean, this is a very intelligent man, PhD in physics, an engineer. This man he built this craft, he put it in, he went up, he was the first man, so he's a world record setter. Dr. Auguste Piccard, Star Trek, Jean-Luc Picard, named after him. Okay? First man to reach the stratosphere. The first man who went that high. Now notice in the commercial, the first couple of horizons they show you completely flat. Alright? He did this on May 27th, 1931. He set a world record at 51,775 feet. Here's a picture. I took some stills of this. They showed us. What are they showing us here? They're showing us the basically flat horizon. Now I love how they change it, but it shows him going up, and it shows him breaking through the firmament into what? Water. They're mocking us. They know the truth, and they're mocking us. Now here's some pictures. Auguste Piccard, PhD in physics. This is well-known historic figure. I mean, stamps of him. I mean, he's. This is not some guy. I can't believe how I never heard of him. Here's him in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Says he was. He was born in 1884, died in 1962. Swiss-born Belgian physicist, notable for his exploration of both the upper stratosphere and the depths of the sea in ships of his own design. In 1930, he built a balloon to study cosmic rays. In 1932, he developed a new cabin designed for balloon flights. In the same year, he ascended to 17,008 meters, 55,800 feet, completed.
Yeah, my belly flop a little bit because I know we got some of this. I just want to get another perspective. Let's get the little tail end of this and keep it pushing.
Before NASA, before they decided they were going to lie to us, before they conspired worldwide to lie. Some people say that there are no scientists that are flat earthers. Well, guess what? He told you what he saw. What is this magazine? Why did we never hear that in our schools? I never heard of this man. Took an Illuminati commercial to make me look, who is this man? Just another picture, you know. And just so you know, this is what I just read right here. Where it says, it's seen a flat disc with upturned edge. The edge is the...
All right. So music's getting kind of crazy. But get that, man. So we got, some of that before. And, this is experimentation. This is, science. This is documented science of these stratosphere joints. This is what Giannini is pulling into with this perspective. This is one of the examples he uses, So as he's doing his own experimentation, this is all correlating. This stuff is all parallel. These are all people exploring. Again, you drop a fish in the fishbowl, the first thing the fish is going to do is explore its habitat. It's only natural. You drop a lion off, somewhere, in the jungle. He's going to explore the habitat. And you have stopped. You've turned that off. It's been turned off in you to even explore, to even know your orientation. Now you say, I don't care. What does it matter? How does it change my life if I'm spinning or if I'm not spinning? Well, don't you want to know the truth? And isn't that what we're searching for? Chapter 4. Disclosing the southern land corridor into the heavens above. So let's just get a piece of this, man, and get ready for our dismount, man. Disclosing the southern land corridor into the heavens above, the Pilgrim of 1928 accompanied Captain Sir George Hubert Wilkins to a meeting of the Los Angeles Breakfast Club where Sir Hubert was guest of honor, and he later visited with the famous Australian explorer at his quarters in Hollywood's Hotel Roosevelt, where the salient features of physical continuity were illustrated with the miniature globe symbol that permitted the quadrants of the globe to be detached. Needless to relate, greatest stress was laid on the feature of the terrestrial land extent. Sir Hubert was fully informed of the unknown and endless land extending beyond the South Pole Point, where his expedition was directed. So, this thing was illustrated as a miniature globe symbol, but it permitted the four quadrants of the globe to be detached. Needless to relate, greatest stress was laid on the feature of terrestrial land extent. And Sir Hubert, Captain Sir George Hubert Wilkins, was fully informed of the unknown and endless land extending beyond the South Pole Point. beyond the South Pole point. The conference was of somewhat different nature from some others of this chronicle. For the modern Columbus, it's all about this Columbus shit, right? How he discovered something that was already populated, was being heard by one who was also a dreamer as well as a courageous performer in the world of established reality. Hence, the archaic of theory was not permitted to dominate the conference. It became evident that the explorer was not risking his precious life at the forbidding South Pole merely for the purpose of measuring wind velocity and to gauge the directional activity of ice flows. Sir Hubert seemed wholeheartedly to share the conviction that the South Pole was by no means the southern end of the earth. His statement afforded eloquent testimony that he was possessed of a powerful urge to go beyond all restrictions of theory and the pioneering spirit of a true explorer. You know, before leaving England, I was advised that if I succeeded in penetration beyond the South Pole point, I would be drawn to another planet. Come on, man. Come on, man. We're just getting separate, substantiating resources, evidence, documenting, experimentation, methodology. So you know, before leaving England, I was advised that if I succeeded in penetration beyond the South Pole point, I would be drawn to another planet, quote unquote, by the suction of its movement that provided appropriate amusement in view of the perceptional portrait then being exhibited. Yet they who were responsible for such expression were not to be censored. The Copernican concept, holding the universe to be comprised of isolated globular bodies, permits no other conclusion than that space would be encountered beyond the pole points of theory. So if you're on a globe and you're saying, I'm going past the Antarctic, then you say, yeah, well, then you're going to shoot out the bottom of the ball instead of continuing with more land and more ice and more water. So if you're on the ball, he's like, yeah, I'm going to penetrate all through here. You say, but you're going to pop out of your ball. Instead of going into more land, more water, more ice. Continuously, that is your celestial. That is your celestial. And what's the drop? Comprised of isolated globular bodies, permits no other conclusion that space would be encountered beyond the pole point of theory. Sir Hubert was visibly impressed by the prospects presented, and he gave firm assurance that he would continue beyond the traditional mathematical end of the earth when he said, Giannini, if you will show me the route to the land you claim exists beyond the South Pole, I will continue onto it in spite of all obstacles. And the International News Service at Los Angeles, this is documentation of what's been going down since 1928. And you think we crazy in 2017 for asking a question or two? And this was being had in their naval societies and International News Service at Los Angeles. They're getting the worldwide best explorers, and now you never even hear about explorers anymore. You just go to work and go home and go to sleep. Mission accomplished, right? You're on a ball. You're afraid you're going to pop out the other side of your ball. If you go too far, you're going to pop out. That's what they have you limited. You're spinning around in this. This is all you think exists. This is it. And everything else are planets. This is your universe, people. These are your stars. These are your planets. Isolated globular bodies, right? No. Change your perspective. Change your perception. Wake up. awaken from the spell and come out of her. You go straight to get up. You keep going straight. Whether in a boat or in a plane, you will get to another world without a spaceship. The International News Service at Los Angeles received a copy of the information designating the route requested by Sir Hubert, and history records a memorable discovery of land beyond the South Pole on December 12, 1928. A memorable discovery of land beyond the South Pole. So they found more land beyond the poles, just like the Japanese map said. In 1928, my people. You dig on it. The manner in which the theorists may have thereafter misinterpreted the value of the land was very little meaning for this work dealing with cosmic reality and diametrically opposed to the conjectures of theorists. However, it seems fitting to here reiterate that man's habitual fear of the unknown permits gross misinterpretation of values demanding a change of concept. Man hates to forsake the old and known course, though newly discovered facts establish that the cherished old of theory has no application to a world of reality. Only the greatest reluctance in the old relinquished. Accordingly, there was early evidence that such previous unknown land beyond the South Pole was being subjected to a mathematical disguise. Thoth, a mathematical disguise, which was intended to hold intact and preserve the 400-year-old conjecture. 400 years, my people, come out of her. The theories was not modified to fit the fact of land extent, but the land extent was discounted to make it fit the theory. Damn. The theory was not adjusted to fit the land extent, but the land extent was adjusted to fit the ball, to fit the theory. They cut off these lands just to fit your ball, because when they say it's 26,000 miles in diameter, that ball can't get no bigger. They can't say, I found some more lands connected to Earth. Well, where would it fit on the ball, they'll say. Oh, is it a sunken land? No, it's just another land past the ice. But it doesn't fit in the ball. It doesn't fit in the Copernican theory where you're spinning around the Helios. Let's go. Subject to mathematical disguise, which was intended to hold intact and preserve the 400-year-old conjecture. The theory was not modified to fit the fact of land extent, but the land extent was discounted to make it fit the theory. The reason and purpose for the southern land extension linked our Earth with the universe about us was obscured with another patch of mathematical abstracts generously applied by the theorists. Oh, now the sun is 93 million miles instead of a few thousand miles. They served only to make glaringly ridiculous an issue which was then confused out of reason's bounds. Therefore, it is still of timely value to quote another fearless dealer in reality who was heard immediately after Sir Hubert's memorable land discovery, December 12, 1928. The masterful arbiter of fact was then famous Russian explorer Dombrova, who announced the sensational discovery of land beyond the South Pole by Captain Sir George Hubert Wilkins on December 12, 1928, demands that science change. So they're challenging science, man. And now if you challenge whatever scientific approved theory about the Earth, it's approved by NASA, it's approved by science, you're still deemed crazy. You're still triggered. Oh, he thinks the Earth is flat. You think you're on a ball. You think this is a ball. And they're having a ball. They're having a Baal of a time. Watch you think you're spinning when all the land is connected. And it's firm, it's fixed, it's immovable, it's infinite. However long this barrier lasts, the Creator keeps creating. I mean, what limits do you put on the Creator to create? Are you not infinite? Demands that science change the concept it has held for the past 400 years concerning the southern contour of the earth. Dombrova, in common with Sir Hubert and a very select group at that time, was unafraid of the space phantom projected by theorists. Phantoms timelines. Phantom projections, phantom maps. But what's the drop? Just because they don't give it to you doesn't mean it ain't true. Just because they don't push it in school doesn't mean someone ain't already writing it down. The Minority Report. Come on, man. And as his words express, he had no patience for the fearful mathematical patchwork to provide a feeble, temporary, but grossly contradictory explanation of that previously unknown land's existence. Let go. All of the extent of that southern land continuity was no penetrated, or not penetrated. Although the extent of the southern land continuity was not penetrated, its estimated length of 5,000 miles indicates endless land continuity if there had been proper interpretation of the land's existence. Endless land continuity. And though the dreamer who charted the course to that land was available as the most competent interpreter, his unmistaken interpretation of values was ignored. Thus, no attempt was made to influence the change of popular concept as dictated by the reality then disclosed. For the reality of that land beyond the South Pole holds eloquent refutation of the Copernican theory's mathematical limitations. You're on a ball. Limitations of the earth. It was manifest that figures and limitations of theory dominated as arbiters of cosmic reality, inasmuch as the land's existence and extent did not conform to the established figurative pattern which contributed to popular misconceptions. Its reality had to be denied. It is easy to grant to a dreamer who had toiled to have proof established the right to believe that the proof would actuate questioning of the archaic theory and concept. Perhaps there was such questioning unknown to him how much underlying and unexpressed interest that land beyond the South Pole may have aroused can only be conjectured, but it is certain that the expressions of that time cannot be considered a token of spirited awakening by arbiters of the cosmic pattern. However, the sensational research and explorative enterprise from 1928 to 1956, undertaken almost exclusively by the U.S. Navy's technical division, attests to a very definite and surprising active interest to determine the facts, yet the reluctance to express interest only prevailed until a very recent date. In a final analysis, it may be well that organized science, as a medium through which discovered values are interpreted, must adhere to a more rigid procedure than he whose unnatural perception enables him to see beyond the acceptable deductive pattern. He who surpasses the pattern owes allegiance only to his soul. It was such quality which permitted discovery of values beyond the ordered pattern. Such being the case, adequate allowances should be made by both sides so that better understanding of the acquisition of values may be had. The lesson should by now be learned that the new and the revolutionary cannot be found in orderly deductive pursuits. where the extraordinary perceptionist, the inventor, the explorer, even the creative artist may and must jump headlong without waiting for the sanction and benediction of tradition's establishment. He must have patience to bide his time until orderly science explores to its own satisfaction the merit of extraordinary findings in whatever field of research, invention, or discovery. On the other hand, it behooves established science to withhold too ready condemnation of the new and the revolutionary until proper investigation has been made on the new presentation of whatever nature. There is no excuse for organized science to become impatient. Accordingly, in the overall word portrait of perceptual values here, it appears to be timely to elaborate upon pertinent features of the fallacious globe earth concept, particularly in relation to the so-called poles. Some of it may be repetitious. If so, repetitious is in order and needs no further apology. This is not a theme so oft repeated of love, hatred, or the many expressions of other human emotion and behavior. This is an original work which has never been published. Hence, it is necessary at times to repeat the most important and least understood features for the purpose of clarity. According to the established globe earth symbol, let's go, y'all. Let's take it in. Let's go. Let's take it home. According to the established globe earth symbol, it must be assumed that any progress beyond the north or southern geographic centers designated by the poles would demand a return towards the north temporal zone or south temperate zone. The symbol makes such return on the other side of physical necessity otherwise, and the Londoners counseled Sir Hubert Wilkins, one would experience a sharp takeoff into space. They'll pop out the ball, right? The misconception of such return from the other side of the globe symbol is so firmly fixed that popular belief holds that the earth has in fact been circumnavigated north and south on numerous occasions. The belief has persisted despite the fact that there has never been a latitudinal circumnavigation of the terrestrial area. There has been none because there can be none. No latitudinal circumnavigation of the terrestrial area. It may be claimed that Admiral Perry, Rail, Amundsen, and other explorers went over the pole. However, it must also be known that such over-the-pole accounts have mistakenly represented the term. Its realistic purpose was to show only that explorers did in fact reach the true pole points. To the poles, with the turnabout for return to starting points is possible of accomplishment, but movement to either pole and over the pole with return to starting point without turning around never was and never can be accomplished. They always have to turn around and come back. It should be realized that explorers of the past did in certain instances reach the pole points, but it should also be realized that they very definitely did not go beyond either pole and return to their starting point from the opposite side of the ball, as popular misconceptions had held. To and over the pole point means only movement to and over the assumed mathematical end of the globe symbol. Image. Make no graven images, which represents no more than supposed terrestrial extent, whereas the over the pole with continuing movement north from the North Pole or south from the South Pole with return to other known areas of the earth is impossible. One goes beyond the pole. One goes beyond the poles. One is moving, as the colloquial aptly describes, out of this world. One then continues to move over land extending beyond the earth. That land beyond is not on either side of the earth. That was conjectured by Mr. Copernicus. Such a land factor, strangely as it may seem to many, is now firmly established by U.S. naval exploration beyond the poles. So this has been firmly established. by U.S. naval exploration, that there is a land connection, a connectivity beyond the poles. It would be most fanciful to contend that any unknown land existed beyond the pole points if one believed that the phrase over the pole really means that explorers of the past went over the pole points from either side to the other side of a supposedly isolated globe Earth. Under such conditions, there could be no beyond. Under such conditions, there could be no beyond other than, I'm going to get that. Other than the space or originally conjecture, but such performance from one side to the other side of an isolated globe Earth is an aspect of popular misconception. Now, I know you're like, man, what's this? This is the infinite sky enveloping the universe, showing the inescapable illusions. Right, so you see the terrestrial and the celestial, the waves, the celestial land surface, the terrestrial land surface. So I guess these are the sky areas, terrestrial outer sky areas, luminous and seemingly globular, isolated, seemingly globular. Celestial outer sky areas, seemingly globular, isolated. So from here, this looks globular and isolated. From here, this looks globular and isolated. This is not intended to show distance from the terrestrial to the celestial. It cannot be drawn to scale, but it does indicate what the nightly view of our terrestrial sky must be for our celestial cousins, the fallen angel cousins. Since up is always relative, our celestial cousins look up or out, though their inner through their inner blue sky, as we do through ours, and behold the same nightly star pattern that we witness, contrary to popular misconception, based on the illusory shooting up or out from any location on the terrestrial and celestial, would take the hapless explorers away from the universe structure and project him into the infinite space. Place your thumb on the illustration stratosphere section, then draw it towards you. That will describe where the space explorer will go. If he did not land back on some land area of the terrestrial, he would be completely lost in space wherein the universe was constructed. Or he would be projected upon some terrestrial area remote from the point of flight origin. Thus the heralded spaceships would be precisely that and nothing else. Any spaceship launched, and there's no doubt that it could be launched, would either be lost in space infinite or be returned in some area of the earth. All right. All right, let's keep going. So 1928 polar expeditions of Captain Sir George Hubert Wilkins and Rear Admiral Byrd did penetrate beyond the South Pole Point in a southerly direction and discovered that land extended at least 5,000 miles beyond the original mathematized southern end of the earth. Incidentally, the estimated 5,000 miles extent represents the greatest estimate possible through triangulation, and there was no other means for estimating. Modern expeditions have penetrated into the 5,000 mile land extent, but its end has not yet been reached. When the end of the estimate is reached, another similar estimate will be made. And such estimating and penetration to the limit of the estimate can continue in infinitum. And there is no physical end to the earth, north or south. G and N, he's just trying to lay it out, man. There's no physical end to the earth, north or south. And then we'll continue right here, man. We know where we're at. Remember, man, the Book of Enoch. We're back in that Flat Earth Bible. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's go to the ends of the earth. The angel Uriel guided Enoch in most of his travels. They made several trips to the ends of the earth where the dome of heaven came down to the surface. For instance, Enoch says, I went to the extremes of the earth and saw there huge beasts, each different from the other, and different birds also differing from one another in appearance, beauty, and voice. And to the east of those beasts I saw the ultimate ends of the earth which rest on the heaven. And the gates of heaven were open, and I saw how the stars of heaven come out. The sharp-eyed reader will note that what I suspect is an editing error in the Isaac translation. The earth resting on the heaven makes no sense, whereon the heaven rests. And Enoch says again, I went in the direction of the north to the extreme ends of the heaven. And there are at the extreme ends of the whole world, I saw a great and glorious sea. There also I saw 3 open gates of heaven, which blows cold, hail, frost, snow, dew, rain. Through each one of the gates the winds proceed in the northwesterly direction. 1 Enoch 34, 1 and 2. This accords well with the Jeremiah 51:16, which says he brings up the mist from the ends of the earth. He opens rifts for the rain and brings the wind out of the storehouses. In subsequent chapters, Enoch journeys to the extreme ends of the earth in the west, south, and east. In each place he saw 3 more open gates of heaven. There were other things to be seen at the ends of the earth. Earlier we deferred discussion of the King James Version, Job 26:7. He stretches out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing. And some people try to use this to say, yeah, man, look, that means it's a ball. You're on a sphere. It's hanging on nothing. On several occasions when Enoch and the angel are beyond the dome of heaven, Enoch comments that there is nothing above or below. For instance, and I came to an empty place and saw there neither a heaven above nor earth below, for a chaotic and terrible place. 1 Enoch 21, 1 and 2. Could this be a kind of nothingness referred to in Job? An angel also showed Enoch the storerooms of the winds and the cornerstone of the earth. Let's get a couple more, man. The sun and the moon. And what of the sun and the moon? Psalms 19:4-6, quoted earlier, suggests that the sun holds up the ends of the earth until it is time to rise. Enoch expanded on this idea in 1 Enoch 41:5. He saw the storerooms of the sun and the moon, from what place they go out and to which place they return. Further, they keep faith one with another in accordance with an oath they set, and they rise. And this oath, this sound, this vibration is all we're talking about, man. And love to you, love to your vibration. We just talking the birds and the bees, man. Love to CJ battle. We love it, man. We love featuring drop like this. This is the drop artist. We're all in the frequency, baby. We all in the frequency, man. Love to y'all. Take us away, CJ battle. Drop Nation.
Something that we never do. Birds and the bees, yeah, they fly so high. No, I don't wanna leave, I don't wanna stay by.